Alright, so hey guys, and welcome to another episode of MGC. Today, you join me on a hot day in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm gonna take you through some of the common things you want to look out for when you're buying your Landcruiser 100 series. So stay tuned, hit like, and hit that subscribe button. Enjoy. Alright, so here it is, my Landcruiser 100 series. You guys know I got this in about 2019, in about May, and I absolutely love the vehicle. So, as you can see, usually the 100 series, you get the block headlights, but this is the Cygnus, which is equivalent of the LX470 in the US market, and so you get these beautiful dual headlights, beautiful fog lights, this very classy grille, upgraded paint, and a bunch of other features. But I've learned a lot about these vehicles over the last 18 months or so, and I wanted to share with you what you want to actually look out for when you're purchasing one of these. Alright, so it's a ridiculously windy day today, so forgive me if you get a bit of wind. I also got a bit of wasps that I'm fighting, but that's alright. So, Landcruiser 100 series came after the 80 series, was a huge update in terms of luxury, bringing that leather, it was a bigger car in all dimensions, and it introduced the amazing 2UZFE V8 motor, and that motor in this 2007 is upgraded to 275 horsepower, so 40 horsepower more than you got in the pre-2006 models. Now, when you're purchasing any vehicle, you want to look at panel gaps. It's very important to look at all the panel gaps in a vehicle to know whether it's had any damage or anything like that that has been repaired. And one way to do that is look at each panel gap. And a lot of people will miss this. They'll see changes in panel gaps, but they'll not think much of it. And I see this a lot in Nairobi as well. A lot of repair shops will just get cars repaired, and it'll, underneath, when you look at the frame and when you look at some of the other aspects, they've had considerable damage. So panel gaps are important. You want to look at all these gaps. You want to make sure that they are all aligned. I mean, Toyota did a good job with these vehicles to ensure that each gap is as it was supposed to be. And so you want to just go through a vehicle and make sure it is as if it came from the factory, with uniform gaps all around the vehicle. Another thing you want to look at is paint. To me, if a vehicle has had a repaint, it suggests something has happened to that vehicle, and so you want to look at that. Vehicles that have had a paint job are most likely because they had to be repaired and then repainted. Now, I know a lot of people still do just repaint cars because they want to change the color, but I really try and avoid that as long as I can, because factory paint, especially this diamond white pearl from the factory, is superb, and not many body shops can match that factory finish. In fact, very few can match that. So you want to look at panel gaps. Secondly, you want to open up the doors, you want to open up the hood, you want to check that everything is closing properly, and that tells you if any work has been done to it. Alright, secondly, we're just going to open this hood up. And what you want to do when you're looking at a Landcruiser 100 series, number one, you also want to check that AHC system. This is your AHC reservoir, and so you want to make sure that the fluid level is nice and high, it's filled to the correct level, and then you also want to test the system. You want to put it in low, you want to put it in high, you want to see that the vehicle is going through that full system without any hiccups or any issues. And another good test that you want to do, so as I mentioned, you want to check the AHC system in your vehicle. These vehicles run on hydraulic fluid. It's not too complex of a system, and it works really well. So how you want to check this system, here is your AHC reservoir, and you want to do a test. You want to put the vehicle in the low mode and check the graduation on the reservoir. Then you want to go ahead and put the vehicle in the high mode and check the difference in the number of graduations. If you've got 7, it indicates you're borderline. Those globes in the system are not doing very well. The globes are the accumulators. They basically take the fluid from the shocks and they provide you the damping, which provides you the comfort of the ride. So if you get 14 difference in graduations, that indicates it's like factory new. So that's a good test to do to make sure your system is in good condition before you purchase a 100 series. All right, next up we want to talk about the brake booster. Here you have your brake booster and your ABS, and this system is one failure point that can happen in the Landcruiser 100 series. I've seen a couple of examples of high mileage 100 series Landcruisers, and I believe this is specifically to do with the way a vehicle is driven. If you're one of those drivers that are constantly accelerating, constantly hard on the brakes, then you're going to put extra pressure on this system, and most likely either the control unit or the brake booster are gonna fail. And if they do, this assembly is quite a pricey fix, and it is known. It's not a common issue, but it is known. If you drive a vehicle, if you drive these 100 series hard, these brake boosters, they may fail at some point. And the way you know it's failing is you get all the lights on the dash. Basically you get the stability control light. Basically it tells you the stability control has been disabled, and you'll also get an ABS light, and you might even get a check engine light, but it basically trips those lights and turns off those systems. So if you get that, you know it's most likely to do with here. Alright, another thing you want to look at when purchasing one of these 100 series is over here on the radiator. You know, you want to make sure this is just nice and clean. It doesn't look like coolant has been leaking over here, because if you see a bit of spillage, and you want to make sure this radiator cap is the original cap. People replace these caps and it causes all sorts of issues. So you want to make sure that this is the original cap and that there's no coolant leakage, and that the radiator fluid level is right to the top. Alright guys, so last aspect is right down under here. Basically, these 100 series are known for leaky CV boots. Basically the rubber of the CVs usually leaks a bit of fluid, and this is not particularly something you have to deal with immediately. These can leak for years, but if you see grease being splattered out all over the wheel and coming onto the control arms, then you know you might want to repack that CV boot and, you know, replace that boot and put some fresh grease inside. But a lot of people just run these down, and then you end up having to replace the CV axles, which is not so big a job, but you want to look out for that, because as you can see, this is a mighty vehicle. Look at the size of that lower control arm, and then of course you got your steering and those hydraulic rams in there, and you can see the CV boots as well, inner and outer. Alright, another thing you want to look at is this steering rack. As you can see, we have the steering connected into the gears, and then the steering rack at the bottom. And in this vehicle, the steering rack is quite meaty, quite big, but the bushes will usually fail at some point, and the steering rack in general is known to be not necessarily a weak point, but something you might need to deal with. These are known to have a few issues where if you see a leak that has developed, then eventually you might need to replace that rack, which can be a bit pricey. But it's not that common, but it does happen on higher mileage vehicles. So if you're purchasing one of these, you want to just check down there. You want to check the power steering level, and you want to make sure that there's no leaks down under. You'll be able to see power steering fluid leaking if your steering rack has an issue. Alright, and apart from what I've mentioned, there's not much else really to worry about too much if you've checked panel gaps and if you've checked all the other bits. As long as your vehicle looks spick and span, clean as hell, you know, very little wear on these soft cushiony leather seats, and an interior that, you know, makes you feel like this is a brand new vehicle, then you are good to go. You know your car has been taken care of. You know, you can also take out the oil dipstick, check the quality of the oil, check the fluid, check the coolant levels, and just make sure that the previous owner has actually cared about his vehicle. If a previous owner has loved his vehicle, then you're gonna love it as well, because it's been taken care of and it's in good condition. There's no neglect whatsoever. So one other thing, you can also, of course, test that sunroof, make sure that's functioning, because sometimes those motors can go bad if the drains of the vehicle are blocked. As you can see, when it rains, we have got our drains over here, and sometimes these drains can get blocked with leaves and gunk over time. So if those are blocked, they can lead water underneath here, and that will start causing issues with your sunroof motor. So you want to check for that. It's been another episode of MGC, taking you through some of the sort of pre-purchase things you want to make sure of when getting a Landcruiser 100 series. So next video, I'll be taking you through some of the things you want to look out for if you're purchasing a Landcruiser 200 series. But overall, these vehicles are great, but if you purchase a bad one, it can cost you some money, and that's what people, tend to forget. Some people do tend to forget that this is still a luxury vehicle, and so some of those things, if they have gone bad, or you purchase one where the previous owner has neglected, then it can cost you some money. And that's the common myth that's out there, that these things are bulletproof. Purchase them at any mileage, and don't even think about it, just pull the trigger and pay the money. I wouldn't necessarily subscribe to that exactly. There are some things you want to check out for, so you don't get some huge bills. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of MGC. Catch me in the next one. Cheers.